The message came in while I was assisting customers at my boutique. I'm leaving you and moving to California with my much younger girlfriend. I've already cleared out our joint account. Ha ha! My hands didn't tremble as I read it. My voice remained steady as I helped Mrs. Peterson choose a scarf. The only indication that my husband of 12 years had just detonated our marriage through a text message was a faint tension around my eyes. I waited until Mrs. Peterson walked out, her purchase neatly wrapped in our signature silver paper, before I typed my reply. Good luck! My name is Olivia, and at 36 years old, I had just received the most heartless farewell ever. But while James was likely basking in his dramatic exit, picturing me shattered and sobbing over his betrayal, I was calmly closing up my boutique for the evening. The signs had been there for a long time: the late nights at work that never reflected in his bank deposits, the sudden password updates on his phone, the way he'd suddenly taken an interest in going to the gym. He had been religiously buying new clothes, desperately trying to reclaim his youth. 3 months ago, I found a receipt for dinner for two at a pricey restaurant on a night he swore he was working late. That same evening, I opened a separate bank account at a different bank. A week later, when James suggested merging our finances to make things easier, I smiled and agreed while quietly transferring my personal savings into the new account. The joint account he had just drained, it held just enough to avoid raising suspicion about 2 months' worth of regular deposits. The rest was safely tucked away, along with meticulous records of every questionable transaction he'd made over the past year. My phone buzzed again. Don't bother begging. Melissa and I leave tomorrow. I'll send for my things later. Melissa, the new receptionist at his office. I'd met her at the company holiday party. I remembered her laughing a little too eagerly at James's jokes, how her hand lingered on his arm when she thought no one noticed. She was young enough to be his daughter, naive enough to believe she was special. I didn't bother replying to his message. Instead, I called my attorney, the one I'd met with 2 months ago, after spotting hotel charges on our credit card statement. It's time, I said. He just made his move. The papers are ready, she said. I'll file them first thing tomorrow. Want me to have him served in California? No rush, I said. Let him think he's won first. Another message from James. I know this must be tough for you. You're not exactly getting younger after all. At least you've got your little shop to keep you busy. My little shop, the thriving boutique I built from the ground up, the one that earned more than his mid-level office job ever did, the one whose profits I had very deliberately kept separate from our shared finances. I smiled, already picturing the certified letters that would soon be waiting for him in California. Let him revel in his little moment of triumph. I spent that evening in our house, my house since I had inherited it from my grandmother and kept it solely in my name, despite James's constant attempts to have his name added to the deed, another lucky instinct that had paid off. While organizing the documents my lawyer would need, I came across our wedding album. James looked so different back then, before his midlife crisis had transformed him into a parody of who he used to be. These days, he wore shirts too tight for his softening midsection, tried too hard to connect with the 20-somethings at his job, and used slang that sounded absurd coming from a 45-year-old man. My phone kept buzzing with messages from him, each one more patronizing than the last. I've been planning this for months. Melissa understands me in ways you never could. You'll be fine, maybe you'll find someone your own age. Already told my family. They agree we drifted apart. It's no one's fault, really. I screenshotted every message, saving them in my evidence folder. Let him dig his own grave. My lawyer would love his casual confession of premeditation and that cheerful declaration about emptying our account. Then one last text grabbed my attention. BTW. I used the joint card to book our flights and hotel. Consider it my parting gift. Lol. Perfect. I immediately called the credit card company. Mrs. Harrison speaking. I need to report fraudulent charges and cancel a card right away. Certainly, ma'am, the representative said. Can you identify the charges? Yes. 2 first-class tickets to California, booked today. Hotel reservations at the Royal Palm, and I'll need to remove my husband as an authorized user. Do you have any documentation of the fraud? Text messages from my husband admitting he used our joint card to pay for travel with his girlfriend after draining our bank account. I'd be happy to forward them. The representative's professional tone couldn't quite mask her satisfaction as she cancelled every charge. James and Melissa would arrive at the airport the next day to discover their tickets had been voided and their hotel reservation cancelled. My phone buzzed again. "Don't worry about the house, I'll let you stay there until you find something smaller." I actually laughed out loud at that one. Did he really believe he had any right to my grandmother's house? Had his ego inflated so much that he forgot whose name was on the deed? Another message. "I know the shop means a lot to you. We can figure out a fair price for your half." My half of my business, the one I had built, funded, and nurtured entirely on my own, while he mocked my long hours and dismissed it as just a hobby. I poured myself a glass of wine, the expensive one I'd been saving for a special occasion. This moment qualified. Tomorrow, James would get a crash course in property law and separate assets. But tonight, I'd enjoy the peace and start sketching out my next chapter. Morning brought a flurry of increasingly irritated messages from him. "What the hell did you do to our credit card? The airline won't honor the tickets. The hotel canceled our reservation. Answer me." I silenced my phone and headed to my boutique. Fridays were always our busiest day, and I had a fresh shipment of designer handbags to unpack. Life doesn't pause just because your husband runs off with a receptionist half his age. Around noon, his mother called. "Olivia, dear, James told us everything about how controlling you were, how you pushed him away. He says you're being vindictive now, messing with his travel plans." I put her on speaker while arranging a new window display. Did he happen to mention emptying our joint bank account or charging first-class flights for him and his girlfriend on our credit card? Silence. Then, well, he said you left him no choice, that you'd grown cold and distant. "Barbara, I have the texts. Would you like me to read them to you?" "Position to freeze all remaining assets." "Has he been served yet?" "Not yet, but he'll receive the papers at his new motel address." Speaking of which, his girlfriend's social media is proving to be excellent evidence. She's been posting non-stop about their adventure today, including some colorful comments about you. I smiled, thinking of my own documentation. A full year's worth of questionable charges, hotel receipts, and text messages proving premeditation. James had been so wrapped up in his dramatic exit. He never considered that I might be watching, waiting, preparing. My phone buzzed again. "You think you're so clever, but I made copies of the boutique's financial records. Half that business is mine." I forwarded the message to my lawyer, adding it to the ever-growing file of James's poor decisions. Let him find out the hard way how separate assets and sole proprietorship really work. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. The emergency hearing on Monday was everything I could have hoped for. James arrived wearing his new and improved younger man look, designer jeans too snug for his frame, and a blazer that practically shouted midlife panic. Margaret waited just outside, her youth harshly exposed under the fluorescent courthouse lighting. My attorney laid out our evidence with surgical precision. James's gloating text about draining our account, the credit card fraud, and a year's worth of documented suspicious expenses, all collected through quiet diligence. "Your Honor," his newly retained lawyer began, "my client acknowledges some impulsive decisions, but Mrs. Olivia Harrison's actions have been cold and calculated." "Calculated?" my lawyer countered. "You mean strategic?" My client safeguarded her separate assets and maintained thorough records of her husband's shady behavior. "That's not cold, it's smart." The judge reviewed the files. The deed to the house, solely in my name. The boutique's incorporation under my ownership. The clear divide between business and personal finances, which James always ridiculed. "Mr. Harrison," the judge addressed him directly, "you admitted via text to intentionally emptying a joint account and misusing shared credit cards to fund a personal vacation. Do you deny this?" James squirmed. "I was just trying to make a clean break." "By committing financial fraud?" The judge raised an eyebrow. "And now you claim entitlement to assets that are clearly documented as non-marital." "The business expanded during the marriage," James's lawyer insisted. "That doesn't make it communal," my attorney interjected. "The boutique was founded before the marriage and remained financially independent throughout. We have receipts for every dollar invested and earned." I watched James's expression shift, reality hitting hard. He had assumed it would be simple. Clean out our accounts, run off with Margaret, and claim half of what I'd built. He'd mocked my boundaries, my caution. Now they were saving me. This court finds sufficient evidence of financial misconduct, the judge ruled. All shared assets will be frozen until final resolution. Mr. Harrison is ordered to repay the funds withdrawn from joint accounts within 24 hours. But that money's gone, James blurted. We spent it on. Then I suggest you find a way to return it, the judge said firmly. And let it be noted, this court does not look kindly on using joint funds to finance a romantic getaway with a mistress. Outside the courthouse, I overheard Margaret questioning James about their trip. His answer was drowned out by the echo of my heels striking the marble floor as I returned to the business he had never respected, much less understood. In the following weeks, James grew increasingly desperate. He claimed the boutique had been his idea, that he'd helped finance it, that we were business partners. Each lie was swiftly dismantled by my airtight records. He's spiraling, my lawyer commented. Looks like they're staying at her studio apartment now. Turns out, living on a receptionist's salary isn't quite the fantasy he had in mind. Even his family began reaching out, their tone much softer now. We had no idea, Amanda confessed. He told us you were controlling and distant, that he felt trapped. But then we saw the messages, the way he bragged about draining your money. That's not the brother I thought I knew. His mother called again too, this time in tears. The things he said about your age, about trading you in for someone younger. Here's the continuation of the revised version with names adapted, followed by the full Portuguese translation. James's mother had left a voicemail in tears. I raised him better than that. I thought I did. Maybe she had. But I stopped answering their calls. Weeks ago, their support might have meant something. Now, it just felt like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Ironically, the boutique flourished. Whispers about my situation spread through town, drawing in curious visitors, most of them women who came under the guise of checking in but left with designer handbags and fierce nods of solidarity. One of my exes tried the same thing, a customer said as she bought a handbag. Thought he'd take it all in the divorce. Men like that never see it coming when we outsmart them. My phone still buzzed with messages from James, swinging wildly from rage to guilt to begging. You ruined everything. I never meant to hurt you. You'll regret being so vindictive. That business would be nothing without my support. I forwarded each one to my attorney without a word. Let James keep digging his own legal grave. Rumors reached me that Margaret was having second thoughts. Turns out, sharing a cramped studio apartment with a middle-aged man who couldn't afford rent wasn't the whirlwind romance she'd envisioned. The age gap, once thrilling in dim hotel rooms, looked different in the harsh light of shared bills and grocery lists. She's been posting about toxic relationships, my lawyer mentioned during a call. She even removed her relationship status this morning. I almost felt bad for James. Almost. I raised him better than that, I thought. I did. Anyway, I let their calls go to voicemail. Their support might have meant something weeks ago, but now it felt like rats deserting a sinking ship. The boutique thrived, ironically, boosted by local gossip about my situation. Women started coming in, specifically to show support, often leaving with far more than they'd planned to buy. My ex tried something similar. One customer confided while buying a designer handbag thought he'd take everything in the divorce. Men like that never expect us to be smarter than them. My phone still buzzed occasionally, with texts from Mark, his tone swinging between anger and manipulation. You've ruined everything. I never meant to hurt you. You'll regret being so vindictive. Can't we work something out? That business would be nothing without my support. I forwarded each message to my lawyer without responding. Let him dig his hole deeper. Through the grapevine, I heard Melissa was having second thoughts, apparently sharing her studio apartment with a middle-aged man who couldn't afford his own place wasn't the romantic adventure she'd imagined. The age gap that had seemed exciting during secret hotel meetings felt different in the harsh light of reality. She posted about toxic relationships and learning from mistakes. Yesterday, my lawyer mentioned during an update call and removed her relationship status. This morning, I almost felt sorry for Mark. Almost, but then I remembered his haha after telling me he'd emptied our account. The casual cruelty of his comments about my age, the way he'd assumed I'd be helpless without him. Instead of pity, I felt something else. Pride in my foresight and my quiet. Strength in my ability to protect myself. While he underestimated me, the final divorce hearing painted a very different picture from Mark's imagined triumph. Gone was his cocky attitude, replaced by barely concealed panic. Melissa was noticeably absent. She moved on to a co-worker her own age, according to office gossip. Mark had shown up in his old clothes, the designer wardrobe apparently, returned to help repay the joint account. He'd emptied. His lawyer looked tired, probably from trying to find loopholes in my documented separation of assets. Your Honor, Mark's lawyer attempted one last time despite the separate property documentation my client contributed to the growth of his wife's business through moral support. My lawyer interrupted, like these text messages belittling Mrs. Harry's business as a little shop, or these social media posts calling it her hobby. The judge had clearly seen enough. The final settlement reflected my careful planning. I kept my house, my business, and my separate assets. Mark got his personal possessions, and his car, worth less than what he owed, was the last thing he had of value. You've destroyed me, James hissed as we walked out of the courthouse. I'll have to move back in with my parents. No, James, you destroyed yourself. I just made sure you couldn't destroy me too. His mother stood by the curb, ready to drive him to her house, his new home at 45. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who had mocked my age now slept in his childhood bedroom, while I continued running a business he had never believed in. You planned this all along, he accused. You knew this would happen. No, I just paid attention, and unlike you, I understood the value of keeping good records. His mother stepped between us. That's enough, James. You've embarrassed yourself enough already. As they walked away, I heard her beginning to scold him. Honestly, what were you thinking? A 20-year-old, emptying joint accounts, sending those horrible texts? I watched them disappear into the parking lot, feeling only one thing: relief. James thought he was ending our story with that cruel message, but all he did was set my carefully prepared plan into motion. My phone buzzed, not with more texts from James, but with notifications from my boutique's website. New orders, new beginnings. Life was moving forward, just not in the direction he imagined. Mark's mother called again, this time with a quieter, more humbled voice. Olivia, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For not believing you sooner. For defending him when I shouldn't have. I paused, unsure how to respond. A part of me wanted to hang up. Another part, the one that had spent years craving some recognition, just listened. He's not the man I thought he was, she said. The things he's said, the way he's acted, I raised him better than that. I thanked her politely and ended the call. I didn't need their apologies anymore. Not after everything. 6 months had given me clarity, peace, even success. James had become a cautionary tale of arrogance, entitlement, and underestimating the wrong woman. He had lost his job, his girlfriend, the support of his family, and any chance of sharing what he once mocked as my little hobby. Meanwhile, my story was being told in a different light. I was no longer just the ex, I was a business owner. A mentor, a woman who didn't crumble when her world shifted. She rebuilt it, better than before. 1 year after the divorce was finalized, I stood in the doorway of my second boutique, watching customers flow in and out with smiles and shopping bags. It was a crisp spring morning, the sun was shining. My coffee was warm in my hands, and for the first time in a long time, so was my heart. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry. I was free. Mark became just a chapter in my story, a necessary one. Maybe, but not the ending. He had underestimated me. He thought I'd break. But I didn't break. I built. And now, I look around at what I've created: 2 thriving stores, a growing online brand, a team that believes in me, and I feel nothing but gratitude. Gratitude for the lessons. Gratitude for the pain that forced me to grow. Gratitude for the quiet strength I didn't even know I had. Revenge? No, this wasn't revenge. This was a rebirth. And the best part? The story's just beginning.